So the second cooking technique that we're going to cover today is baking. And baking is great because it's easy and because it allows you to cook a volume of food that you can enjoy over a long period of time, which makes paleo easier. So the first thing that we need to bake is going to be our baking pan that we talked about earlier, our Pyrex baking pan. And then we have our ingredients. So I'm just going to do some chicken thighs today. So here we have chicken thighs. And then the things that we're going to use to season those with. So we have some sea salt, some pepper, we have some olive oil, some lemon pepper, and then we have some of our aromatics that we worked with earlier. We have the garlic, we have our green onions, and we have our jalapenos. So the first thing that I'm going to do, this is probably enough chicken for a few batches. I'm just going to take these and kind of distribute them evenly throughout the baking dish. I'm going to leave a little bit of room for them to cook. We don't want them to crowd each other. So we're just going to take them in place. We're going to say maybe 6 of these for today that we're going to place in here. So we have our chicken in our pan like this. I have a towel here that I can use to keep my hands clean as I'm working with the chicken. And then we're going to go ahead and season the chicken. And this is an opportunity to talk about seasoning, and this in particular is pre-seasoning. So sometimes we're seasoning things as we're cooking them, and sometimes we're seasoning things before we start to cook them. So in this case, since I'm going to put it in the oven and leave it in there, I'm going to do all my seasoning ahead of time, or pre-seasoning. So what I'm going to do is I have all of my seasoning agents over here. What I like to do is start with my olive oil. And by starting with the olive oil, what it does is it kind of lays down a base for the other ingredients to stick to. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to drizzle it just a little bit over my chicken, just like that. And this isn't an exact science. If a little bit more oil gets on one piece of chicken than the other, it's not really a huge deal. And then after that, I'm going to work basically with my finer seasonings first. So I'm going to start with my salt, do a little salt over the chicken. Some people may be wondering about using table salt and getting too much sodium. My personal feeling, a lot of paleo people exercise very regularly, and we're not eating a lot of processed food, so we're not getting that extra sodium that we don't need. My feeling is that lightly salting with sea salt is a great thing to do to bring out the flavor of foods, and it is a nutrient that your body needs within moderation. So we're going to take our salt, we're going to salt, then after that I have some fancy exotic peppercorns that I'm going to just grind over the chicken really quickly. And in addition to that, I have kind of something that's a little bit special that I like to use, which is a lemon pepper, which is made from the cured rinds of lemon. So I'm just going to take a bit of that, do it over the top of the chicken like that, not too much. And then lastly, I'm going to let kind of the aromatics sit on top of that. So I have my garlic, my green onions, and my jalapenos, and at this point it doesn't matter. I can go ahead and I can mix these up, and then what I can do is I can just kind of sprinkle them evenly over the top of the chicken. And then they'll sit on there, and as it bakes, those flavors will cook right into the food. And now all we have to do is put it in the oven. Now that we have our chicken seasoned, the one thing that does require a degree of specificity with baking is your cooking temperature and time, and this is a good thing to reference. So while the setup and the seasoning is very easy, you do want to make sure that you have the right cooking temperature and the right cooking time. And that's kind of something that varies by meat and something that you do need to look up every time. So I happen to know that these bake well at around 450 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. So now that I have my chicken in my baking pan, I'm just going to come over to my oven, which is preheated to 450 degrees. Go ahead and set the chicken on the top baking shelf in here. Close the oven. Then we're going to set our timer. We're going to say 30 minutes We can come back and look at it. If it needs more time at that point, we can give it to it. And we're just gonna let that bake and make sure you don't miss the timer when it goes off. Okay, so now it's been exactly 30 minutes. We're gonna have a look and see if our chicken is done. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the oven, use a towel so you don't burn your hand. And then what we're gonna look for is there's gonna be clear liquid coming out of the chicken. We can also poke it, and if it feels firm, we're gonna know it's done. The obvious way to do this is with a knife. You can cut it open and look at the inside to see if it's done. I've been doing chicken long enough that I happen to know that it looks done as it is. But if I go grab the knife, we can go ahead and make a slice through it. And we can look on the inside whether it's cooked through or not. So that's an easy way to tell, especially with small pieces of chicken like this that you can't fit a meat thermometer in. That's really the fail-safe way to check and see if it's done. So now that we know it's done, we'll go ahead and set the knife down, grab the chicken, again using the towel so we don't burn ourselves, and we'll go ahead and set it on our surface. And that's really all there is to it. You get a cooking time and a temperature. You have your baking pan in which you place your meats, some simple seasonings. Make sure you don't leave it in there too long. Take it out, we have beautiful baked chicken. And that's our baking section.